everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Marcella. I'm the executive director of the Color of Music Collective, and I'm so excited to have all of our incredible panelists with us tonight. So we're just going to jump right into introductions. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Let's have everyone go around and briefly say your name and pronouns, company, position, and your clients. And let's start with Corynne.
Sorry, I had to unmute it. Hi, everybody. My name's Corynne. I was born and raised in Florida. I've called Los Angeles home for the past 6 years. I started out as an event promoter, transitioned into management, and now I am the Chief Operations Officer for New Management. We represent artists including Candy, Nitty Gritty, Side Piece, Henry Fong, and Arias.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And how about you, Ethan?
I'm Ethan Baer. I was raised in Denver, Colorado. I started off in music as a DJ in college and eventually launched a blog called Subsynthesis and went on to eventually do EDM.com. And now I work at Create Music Group as SVP of Business Development and head of the electronic department.
Awesome. And how about you, Ryan?
Hi everyone, my name's Ryan. I grew up here in California my whole life. Live in Los Angeles now for about the past 12 years. Started in music management, had my own independent company, and 2 years ago merged it in with Producer Entertainment Group. They have a record label that I oversee now. Our roster is mainly LGBT talent, a lot of drag queens from RuPaul's Drag Race, if you're a fan of that show, and other LGBT talent.
Awesome. And Cody?
Hi everyone, Cody Verdecias. I am from New York City, born and raised. I split my time between management. I manage producers, artists. I look after Take a Day Trip. I look after DJ Dahi. I look after Dylan Brady, Laura Less, who are two who make up the group 100 Gex. I look after a mixer named Jeff Ellis. I also do A&R at Atlantic Records, where I'm senior director of A&R in New York City. A couple of artists from my roster include Pink Sweats, Ivy J, Busy Banks, Goody Grace, 100 Gex, Turnstile, Code Orange. I mean, if you put together this Spotify playlist, you'd probably be like, what's wrong with this person? They have such ADD, they can't listen to one genre. I've just been like that my whole life. Like I work in every space and, I've been able to create records in every genre. And I also work in the production business. So it's allowed me to, really bridge the gap in the community between record making and writers and producers. I think that's part of the industry. So that's me.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I see we have Zoe joining us as well. You're on mute, Zoe.
Yeah, someone muted me. Hey, how are you guys? How is everyone?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. We're just doing a brief introduction. So if you could just say your name and pronouns, company, position, and your clients.
Yeah, of course. My name is Zoe Young. I'm Vice President of A&R at Epic Records. Currently on my roster, I have French Montana, I have Black Youngsta, I have Bia, Stunner Girl, a kid named DDG, and that's about it. Oh, wait, and I have one more just recently added. I have Southside, the producer. So it's a big one for me. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, we're so excited to have this incredible group of panelists with us tonight, and let's just jump into the discussion. Mia, if you'll take it away with the first question.
Sure. So my first question here is, what would you say is an A&R's biggest challenge today?
Well, for me, one of my biggest challenges with such a heavy roster is just dealing with all the different personalities. I feel like it's easy for me to go in and do my job and figure out who the best producer is to work with an artist or who the best writer is to work with an artist. But for me, it's a personal process. The biggest challenge is just dealing with everybody's different personalities and if they're having a good day or a bad day, and just keeping them focused so that they can just really be in the best mood to record and make the best music they can.
Yeah. I mean, and when someone from the outside looks in, I think a lot of it is looking at A&R through the scope of like discovering the talent, but it's so many different layers to when you actually sign the artist and what you need to go through to help them figure out who they are, and that takes so much time. It takes so much energy. Because it's not just you and them, it's their team, it's the team internally at your label or your publishing company. So those challenges reign true, I think, even more so now because artists are very self-sufficient, but they still look to you to how they can evolve, And I think now we've been challenged as a creative department more than ever with this new, how they shoot videos, how could they get music up in time, fast, how could they capitalize on a moment? These things go hand in hand, and the psychology and the, that element is important. Some people don't have that relationship with their artists, but I think there are people who really feel like that the value that they bring to the table of that connection helps aid in their A&R process. Those ones that work that way, those challenges are every day. So just to pick up on Zoe's point.
Yeah, I think this is one that has been a topic of A&R panels for like the last 10 years probably. But I think it's an ongoing challenge that I think continues to evolve, but remains a challenge. Is really just like the difference between kind of data-driven A&R and gut feeling-driven A&R, and the origins really come from a very much discovery-based, like finding something new and exciting. And then there was kind of the onset of streaming and all of the data that we have access to, whether it's touring or streaming or sales or, playlisting, anything, and all the different, forms of data and information that we can get around the music. And so, one of the things that our VP of A&R always says is it's kind of like Shark Tank, right? So someone comes on the show, an artist comes into the office, they have a great product or great music, right? But then the question comes around of like, but who's buying this, right? Is anyone actually interested right now? The product is cool, but who cares? So that's when it's like, okay, you have to have the product, but there also has to be some sort of data to back it up. And if there's not, then, it's a much higher risk. But then there's, the less data there is, the less likely that there is a competitor also looking at the same artist, right? Because there's less breadcrumbs leading to that person. So it's kind of figuring out the balance of like, how much do you lean into data to mitigate risk and kind of to inform your decisions? And how much do you trust your gut and really try and find something that the data hasn't flagged yet as a potential score or a potential, a potential hit or whatever. So I think finding that balance is continuing to evolve. And now during the pandemic more than ever, a lot of the gut of like being able to be in the room with the artist or being able to see them perform isn't there. So does that mean you lean more into data? Does that mean, you have to make more of an effort to kind of do Zoom calls with these artists? So I just think that's definitely a challenge that has continued to evolve and has possibly gotten more challenging now.
I would second what Zoe and Cody said about, especially for me, our company is first and foremost a management company, and we have a record label that I oversee. So there's a lot of the management element in there, which I'm sure a lot of people here have either in the past done or are currently still doing. And I've always kind of thought of it as, I called it marriagement. It feels a little bit like we're married to some of these people, but we're trying to manage them at the same time. So, everyone's at a much higher anxiousness level in the world right now. So I agree that there's a lot more time spent right now, at least for me, helping these artists make decisions and yeah, really just make some basic decisions, because I feel like everyone feels a little bit stalled and a little bit nervous to kind of take a step forward. And luckily, music we can push forward with right now. You can still do a lot of things, almost everything other than touring. So I think it's kind of redeveloping those relationships, and for me, really leaning into even more of that management side of things, of being a, you know, someone to listen and help them and make that first step.
So just to kind of piggyback off of what everybody said, because this is one of the questions I was actually really intrigued on, coming from a management perspective. I think that, you know, when I think about the challenges facing A&R, it's a little different than being the person who's actually in it. For us, it's mostly like trying to find the right balance between fitting in and standing out, whether you're, you know, following the trends, but still maintaining your originality. And now specifically when there's more time than ever for creatives to go make whatever they want, and all of this content being pushed and all of the artists getting these outside influences, having an A&R who's able to direct the artist and partner them with people who match their personalities and is a good fit, but still have the flexibility to kind of guide them in the direction that's going to, you know, increase their streams and their visibility and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great segue to our next question, which is, how has A&R changed since the pandemic?
I mean, let me tell you, A&R has changed. It's gone from artists. It really feels like all the artist development you've done from the beginning still so relative, and keeping things forward on our babies. Like, you have to do it every single day, but it's always moved into a predominantly singles based like A&R field, where like every single week we're identifying a new record that's sparking, and we have to be absolutely like minute to the second fast to dig under the hood and assess and evaluate if it's worth us signing. Simultaneously, while getting our artists to make sure that every single artist on my roster has put out a project or will be putting out a project this year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, I think no one is really allowed for their own like best interest to sit and wait. That goes from the biggest artist to the smallest artist, you know, whether it's a single, a song, or project. I think on two focuses and two aspects of it, you know, from the acquisition side, it's so fast. It's lightning speed right now. And you have to be early, you have to assess, you have to be diligent. And to some degree, it's taken out, I think personally, it's taken some of the things that I love about music out of the equation. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like there are moments where I have to evaluate bad music, you know, and that's fucking, to me, like, not what I want to be doing with most of my time of the day. But you have a few things that spark that, you know, I think it's a lot of like adjusting who you are as a person, because A&R is so personal. It's such a personal, creative thing where it's like dictated by your personal taste, you know? So you have to almost, in certain instances, think like, this is, other people appreciate this, maybe I don't, and I need to understand that and be okay with that and empower them. You know, it's working for somebody, and it's doing that for someone. And you know, I think for me, I always first and foremost look at, there's a star and somewhere there. You know what I'm saying? Like, somewhere is there a star, somewhere is there an artist that could, because constantly, I think for A&R, like, I think we saw this, especially before the pandemic, those who work in A&R in a space of artist development sign something with the hope that you break it and they have a hit within this development process. But on the other side, at the same time, you still have to develop an artist, no matter what. If they have the hit, they have the hit later, you have to develop an artist. Now, a kid can walk into the room with a hit record, but it's not an artist. You have to make the decision of, do I want to start with a hit and move from this motion forward, and knowing I have to make an artist anyway, or do I let it sit and wait for the real artist to walk in the room? These are things that we have to evaluate now more than.
Yeah, because it's the music business, you know, like, we're here also to make money. That question is really a two-tier question for me. Sorry to cut you off. Like for me, you know, as an A&R, I'm going through two different processes. I'm going through the process of like continuously always looking for new talent, always looking for the next biggest artist, always scouring down the internet from head to toe, scouring the streets and just being everywhere that I'm supposed to be and finding out, you know, every city I'm going into. Like I like to listen to the radio. I don't plug in my phone. I want to see who the radio's playing. When I go in a club, I want to see who's the DJ, like what's the local celebrity, like who cares about that? So for me, looking for artists, the pandemic has changed so much because you can't really go too much, can't really go too far to look. I mean, as far as, you know, if I want to look for an artist right now, I'm pretty much based on the internet. You know what I mean? I'm on YouTube, I'm on SoundCloud, I'm just on Instagram, I'm checking everybody's DM. So in that aspect, it just made it a lot less hands-on. Being is working on the things that you already have. So like everyone that's on my roster, I sent them, I had them all get like a home recording studio. Because at one point the studio, we weren't even able to book the studio at all. So everybody got, you know, we rushed and we bought all these home studios. So anyone that needed to record could record, and that kind of really didn't work out so well, but it was like, we gave you the opportunity. And then, you know, through the pandemic, everybody just like, they didn't really know what they wanted to do. They weren't sure. And then after some time went by, everybody's ready to work. Everybody's ready to drop. But now, you know, as far as like working with the label, we can't travel as much as we normally do. They have a lot of restrictions. So, you know, a person like me that maybe flies out to see you 4 times a month, maybe I can fly out to see you 1 time a month. So all my sessions with all my artists at this point, they're very intense because we know that we don't have much time together. So we're planning and we're preparing before we get in the studio. We know what we're doing. We know who's coming. We know what we're recording. And we know where we're going with this because the pandemic just really showed us like nothing is promised, nothing is given. Like we can literally be cut off tomorrow and not be able to do anything. So on one side, it made it harder to scout for talent. But as far as the talent I already have, I felt like it forced us to come closer because we're already in the middle of something. And now, even though, you know, now I can't meet with you with 30 people, but now I'm coming to your house because I know how important that one-on-one time, or you're coming to find me. So on the 2 different tiers, it, you know, it moved the needle 2 different ways for me personally as an A&R.
I think another an interesting aspect to the process that kind of the pandemic has brought about is a lot of artists, particularly like I primarily work in electronic music. So it was obviously an industry that was very, very much touring dominated. And it's been really interesting to see like what different artists and their teams are doing to kind of make up for that lack of touring. And I think being able to observe what artists are doing, are they creating, you know, are they doing those live, you know, the live stream events? Are they doing, you know, listening parties with some of their fans? Like seeing these kind of additional things, additional opportunities and additional outlets for their engaging with their fans has been an interesting tool for A&Ring, because you're able to get a sense of like, are these people proactively trying to find ways to connect despite the difficulty of connecting at this time? And it's an interesting tool for kind of evaluating not just obviously the music that you'll get to listen to, but the kind of commitment to finding ways to make it work, which is always an interesting thing that you want to see in an artist.
Yeah, I totally agree with Ethan. When it comes to, you know, changes, I think that the live streaming, especially in the space, live streaming has now become the standard in order to get in front of fans. And the music that's being released now is a lot more streaming friendly versus a lot of people when they were touring were releasing songs that would go off at a festival, but it's not something that you would normally listen to in the car. So I think that a lot of people have kind of tried to find a more streaming friendly sound and kind of explore that direction with the different live streams. But it has totally changed the way that artists are approaching their music and the way that they're getting in front of fans, for sure.
Yeah, and in terms of kind of like the more hands-on A&R side of things, I think that a lot of these artists, when they were making music for their shows, they knew exactly what their sound was and what they wanted to do. And creatively, they had a very strong grasp of like what they wanted to accomplish. And now that a lot of them are having to kind of pivot, as Corynne said, and make music that's a little bit more streaming friendly so that they can continue to make money off of their music at a time when they're not able to promote their show-driven music with performances, there's a lot more reliance on kind of classic A&R process and help. Like, the artists are looking for help figuring out how to take their sound and make it fit the given environment better. So I think that's an opportunity for kind of more involvement on the creative side.
I've been really trying to, with my roster, put an emphasis back on taking this time to kind of develop or, start on some skills that they maybe were able to push to the side because they were touring a lot or doing things. So, songwriting, even vocal training, or even just kind of going out and experiencing, some unique or uncomfortable something to get inspired by. I'm trying to push some of the artists. That's been a goal of mine at the label, is really taking a lot of our artists who didn't ever consider themselves as songwriters, but had the skill for it, to really invest some time in it. So for me, that's one thing that the pandemic has allowed for is, while we're chugging along, making music, there's really no excuse right now not to be developing some of these skills.
And our last question before we jump into the Q&A is, people often claim record labels don't invest in artist development that much anymore. Do you guys have a response to that?
Can you repeat it, Mia? Can you repeat it one time?
Sure. People often claim that record labels don't invest in artist development anymore. Do any of you have a response to that?
I mean, certain labels don't, but certain labels do. There still are labels that do, and there are labels that don't. Every label has their different style. I think, just from a plain black and white perspective, you look at any label who's invested in R&B, that's a artist development no matter what, and labels like RCA, like those are very relevant artist development stories, because that type of genre of music takes years, so they still exist all over the place, a lot of artists are getting hot themselves. So artist development, sometimes you're not allowed to do, you still have to do artist development, but sometimes an artist walks in with more than the average developed artist does at a certain point in time. But yeah, I do artist development every single day of my life. And even with the artists that came in hot, I still artist development. It doesn't matter what stage they are. Every artist needs artist development. You can be the biggest in the world. There still is development to be had. So I think, yeah, it still exists. I people say that all the time. Like, labels don't do artist development anymore. I think that's not true. And a lot of managers do it too. They do it in tandem with us. It happens all the time. So that myth that labels don't do artist development anymore, it's just not. I'm going to dispel that rumor because it's not true. I think everyone has an artist development story that they can share.
Yeah, also, for example, where I work at Epic, we don't have a specific department for artist development, but I feel like all the executives that we have there are so well-rounded and so groomed and have been through the process so many times that we're all kind of pitching in and doing artist development in our own way in our own department. For me, artist development is not just me being your A&R and going to the studio. It's taking you to other people's sessions. It's getting you on other people's songs. It's getting you outside. It's helping you know how to move around other artists and talk to other artists and, be friendly and interact. It's so deep, and I just feel like that is something that's so important. And I guess it's just, the people that you have around you, it's important for me, I feel like, to have knowledgeable people around you who have been through the process before, because everything that I've learned is because I've been through the process. So, me developing and teaching all the artists I'm working on, it comes from having done it before. So if you surround yourself with people who can teach you and show you, you might could take the elevator and not the stairs.
Yeah, executive development is just as important in these cases to really implement artist development. You know, I think real great executives know how to drive almost every aspect of an artist's business within where they sit. You know, the countless amounts of plays that I've had to make in publicity, touring, like the things that I've had to do that are not my department, digital marketing, all these things go hand in hand with true artist development now. A lot of that comes from the A&R side because we see a lot, you know, along with the managers, we see a lot of the layers, you know, even before it gets to the marketing department, we see these things and they're all vital.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, whoever that was. But I think that it is kind of subjective because coming from, like, we work with a lot of different labels. And so obviously there's going to be some A&Rs who do have kind of the creative direction and have the understanding and what it takes to not only motivate their team and their direction, but the artist and the artist team. Because if everybody's working in tandem with the same vision, then obviously they're going to grow. But you do have people who are comfortable in their position and they kind of just want to see, is this connecting before they put any true effort behind it? Or you've got somebody who's going from label to label because they're just releasing singles and you're not sure how much attention and money and all of that you should be putting behind them. So I think that if an artist comes in and has obviously a record that, you know, they want to get behind, but they have a vision for their project and they have the capabilities of growing, then yes, you're going to get the backing for it. If you come in with just like a one-hit wonder or something you know is going to do well, but then you don't have anything to follow it up with, then probably not.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that. I think part of the feeling that artist development has gone away comes with a misconception about what artist development is. And I think, you know, from my side of things, we get, especially in electronic, but I feel like I think Cody said it's kind of very much happening in every space, is there is a lot more of an emphasis on, you know, all these different singles and jumping from label to label, and like artists, you know, they want to control their masters and they don't want to work with anyone for too long, and they, you know, this kind of like this push to be independent, right, in some ways is in kind of mutually exclusive from development, in the sense that if you're a developing artist and you don't really have much of an existing audience, you know, you would very much fall into something that would need to be developed, but you also only want to do singles and you don't want to commit to working with a label for more than a release or two. It's kind of like development isn't a label spending a bunch of money on a single from a new artist, right? It's a long-term investment over a long period of time. So I feel like a lot of times we get people coming to us that say, hey, you know, I'm exciting. I'm this developing act. I have all this potential. Are you guys down to invest in me? And it's like, we're interested in investing in you, but if all that's on the table is this one single, we're not really investing in you. You're just expecting us to pay for this thing that is going to develop you, and you're going to then go somewhere else. So I think understanding what artist development really means is important to knowing whether or not it's gone away. It's not gone away, but the emphasis on people wanting to just do a lot of releases in a lot of different places in many ways precludes labels that are interested in development from working with those artists.
Yeah, I think in the last, 10, 15 years, artists are able to do a lot of the development on their own. And so I'm looking for artists that are interested to either have some of those skills so that we are collaboratively developing together, or are at least interested in developing those skills, or at least asking questions about how to grow themselves as an artist and their business side of things. Like for me, I've had, I'm sure everyone here has worked with an artist that is just expecting that total investment, and you make every decision. And not only is that not successful, I don't think, it's not interesting, and it's not fun for really anyone after a while. So I'm really looking at artist development as this collaborative process, and I'd like to see artists that come to the table that are, even if they're not completely skilled in it, even though they can do a lot of the things on their own now, distribution and artwork and marketing, I'd at least like them to come to the table and ask these questions and ask me how it works and want to learn together.
It's a lot easier to justify investing in someone when they're also investing in themselves.
I mean, I believe in independent. I believe in empowering independent humans. Like if, I don't know, I just go back to like, it goes, especially in hip hop, Rockefeller, Yo Gotti, like, these are independent like moguls, like these guys they had a vision, they have a team from the beginning, they've had everything set up to the point where they don't really, I think a lot of times they need certain services. I believe in empowering those type of independent artists and creating partnerships with them. The independent mindset from a place of, complete, and anti-partnership, I don't really get, because I think everyone needs something. Everyone needs something from somewhere to get a step forward, whether you need distribution or you need marketing. It's just about the right things. I feel like a lot of deals have gone away where artists were just like, oh, I don't want to do it because I want, it has to have these certain ramifications to get it done because they saw someone else do it, and it may not apply to them. They may not be supportive, foundational to be independent, to have that fucking huge thing underneath them. Like, I felt like the Baby and South Coast, like what they did is amazing. I feel like they put together, they had everything set up for it, and they were ready to go, and they found the right partners. That doesn't happen all the time with one artist who we're talking about a single with. It doesn't, it usually comes in a wave of a movement or, a business, a real understanding of a business. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like, but it all boils down to like, education, and should it be available for independent artists? I think so. I think they should really have a firm understanding of what it means to remain independent, what other independent entities are out there that could support their fundamental roots, what a major could do for them or what a major can't. I think that education should be available to these artists because sometimes they don't have the knowledge, the wealth of knowledge to make those informed decisions. And honestly, like, I have a lot of great lawyer friends who are great, but sometimes, a lawyer's job is to get paid and to help you with the service of aiding you to get paid, and like, maybe not, I know sometimes a lawyer is the only ally some artists have, because managers may be, really new to everything themselves, but some type of, I would love an artist before they sign with a major to have an understanding of what really, everything underneath it, and to ask questions, because not a lot of new artists ask questions to us. It's like, and you find yourself like really needing to educate them, which I think is important to do, to getting to that point. But, we also live in a space like Zoe was saying earlier, of like not being able to see artists like we once did. Like, when I sign an artist, I like to go and be with them. I like to bring them to the building. They see all of Atlantic. They see every department. That's how we go about our signing process, because it is the educational element that makes everyone feel comfortable with this partner, said partner in the room. And right now you don't have that. I've done more than the average meeting to just keep continuing to drill the conversation of, does this make sense, this partnership? Because before you would have that in a much more open, transparent way, and you read the room. Like, I don't know. I think I'm probably getting off topic, but yeah, I think I think everyone is just adjusting and adapting, but everyone's doing a great fucking job. I will say that. I do feel like the whole music industry is doing a great job right now. It's a game of inches this year. So everyone needs to really, they have time, like, educate yourself. New artists, new producers, read on what publishing is. The amount of times I talk to an artist from the label side that they have no idea what publishing is before they sign to me, and before they sign with us, like, do this work, I think it's all there, so.
Definitely.
Yeah, if you're an artist and you haven't read the Donald Passman book, probably should.
Yeah, but you know what? To be honest, like, some of the artists I know will never pick up a Donald Passman book, and everybody tells them to do that shit, and they're not going to do it. So what else is there? What are classes they could go to that make it? I have a 21 artist, Busy Banks, 21 years old. Like, he doesn't. He's not in school. He's not in high school. He's not in college. Like, like, I really feel like it's important to sit with these kids who really are, they're all bright kids, you know, but they don't have that. They're not going to sit and read a Passman book, you know, and like, it's our job to teach them, but also like, I feel like music should expand to the place where there are resources beyond us. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are resources that put our artists first. You know what I'm saying? Like, make sure they're well taken care of. So,
I totally agree with Cody. I think that you do run into circumstances where you try to explain something to an artist, or, you know, refer them to some sort of material, but you have to be able to break it down in a way that they're understanding. And also they have to be self-motivated enough to want to grow and want to learn about these things. Because at the end of the day, we're all in business together, but the ultimate goal is to build the artist's brand so everybody can eat off of it. So if that person is not motivated enough to go, you know, dive into a book or other resources, or even ask the questions in a meeting and absorb the information, then you do run into an issue where it's like, do you want to develop this artist? Because there's a line down the block of other people who are ready to go full force at it and completely understand it and do everything in their power to grow.
Thank you so much, everyone. Some seriously incredible answers here. So I think we're ready to transition into our first Q&A question.
Hi, my name is Hannah. I work for community outreach for Color of Music Collective, but I guess mine is more on the curation aspect. I'm just curious. I know some of you picked up already on this question, but I just feel like I use SoundCloud a lot personally, but I always feel very overwhelmed going through the amount of content that comes out like every single day. But you know, with the music market that is really saturated, and I know that's talked about a lot, how do you guys really pick out like that one winner from the overwhelming amount of music that really comes out like on every single, you know, like Bandcamp, SoundCloud, Twitter, whatever, TikTok, you name it. Do you guys have like any specific methods, or when you do find those, do you feel like people typically like undermine that, or do you usually pick them up when they're gaining popularity? I guess just a really general question.
it's all different. I don't know. It's everything. I don't know. I feel like every artist I found and wanted to sign, it wasn't really a methodical approach. It was just like that moment in time. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I look everywhere, you know, I look through people, I look through the world, like where things are populating all over the world. I look at young people, how they resonate with the music, older people, how people talk about it on Twitter, like how they conversate about the music. You know, if it's polarizing and people are saying they love it or they hate it, I kind of look for those things. I have to look for global shit. Like, I love when things are working domestically, but which is honestly the most important thing. But I like to see like levels of global interest and listening. You know, domestic matters. Domestic matters the most. Like, so if an artist is global, it's amazing. But like, really, when you look for artists, like, look for how they're doing in the United States. Because I think that really makes a big difference. You could build a global story, but it always has to come back around. I don't know. I just listen to great. I try to find something great, you know, and I just look to see how it makes other people feel. I think, again, how it makes me feel is really important. I think it's the trigger. But if it's working for other people and it's doing something for them and they're connecting with it, then, you know, that is something that I think is really viable. Probably the most. Yeah. So I don't have a trick. I don't know. Go everywhere. Dig under every rock. You know, as long as it moves you, like, just share it. Keep sharing it. Get back. You know, get some other ears on it. So that's like, it's kind of my opinion, my advice. Keep looking everywhere.
Great. So are we ready? If anyone else didn't want to chime in, are we ready for our second Q&A question?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Casey. currently doing digital marketing at Primary Wave, but I feel like I don't know that much about A&R. I have multiple questions, but my first one, so everyone talks about how A&Rs look at social numbers nowadays and how many followers a potential artist has now. If someone's cover or their song went viral, as opposed to the old days, quote unquote, of going to shows and whatnot. Do you think that process filters out the artists that aren't necessarily social media savvy? Do you feel like it gives other artists like a fair chance?
I think it gives range. You know, for me, when I'm looking at artists, you know, I look at, I have a checklist of things I look at. And on my checklist, I do have like, you know, social media. Are you someone that's highly looked at? Do people know who you are? Do you have followers? You know, and it's kind of a gauge to see how much work you're going to have to do for me. You know, for me, I'm always trying to work smarter and not harder. And not to say like an artist who doesn't have any social media or any following can't, you know, do well. But it's a very clear sign when somebody has people following them, when they have people following them on Spotify, when they have people following them on Instagram, when they have people watching their videos. It's a great indicator that people care, people want to know more about this person, and people are into them. And sometimes you might have like a great artist who makes great music, but nobody cares. So for me, I always try to like find that middle. I always try to, you know, like if I find an artist that's not really that popular yet, you know, I'm always thinking of like, you know, the talent is the most important thing. We can bring the popularity to them. But, you know, for me as an A&R, I'm also trying to be a businesswoman. And it's like, I can sign somebody that has 500,000 followers or somebody that has 5,000 followers. And for me, it's almost like, you know, what's going to be able to turn a profit quicker, even though this person with 500,000 followers doesn't have a better song, but they're going to sell more. And at the end of the day, it is the music business. So, you know, sometimes you got to go with the talent. You got to work with the artist that has 0 followers and build them up. And sometimes, you know, you find something that's lit and that just needs a little bit of help, a little bit of push, a little bit more fire on it. And it's going to go crazy. And I like, you know, honestly, I like to look at those things too. There's like, so, you know, in the word of like technology and digital, like people that already have a lot going on, it means that they're putting something into it. They're putting some sort of work in and, you know, they're figuring it out. And I like to see people figuring it out. It makes me feel like I can come on board and I can add to what you already have going on.
I think that's a great point, Zoe. And it's kind of thinking about from our side, what resources and team do we have to support the areas that might be deficient, whether it's social media or their skills in music making, whatever those things are. You know, at smaller labels or smaller companies, you might not have the resources and time to develop someone in that way, or maybe you personally love helping someone build up their social media. So for me personally, I can sympathize with that, where it's kind of looking at all the parts of the artist and saying, okay, I feel really strongly about developing these areas, and those happen to be the areas that this artist needs, so that could be a good match for me. So I don't think it's really one or the other anymore. It's just kind of using those as a checklist and then comparing that against what skills I can bring to the table and what my company and my team can help with.
I would kind of go back to the point that we were making earlier about like investing in artists that are willing to invest in themselves. That doesn't necessarily mean monetarily, because not everyone is in a position to financially put a bunch of money into their own project. But, you know, starting a Facebook doesn't cost money if you have internet, and starting a Instagram doesn't necessarily cost money. So seeing artists make an effort to build these different platforms, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or Triller or whatever, seeing that they're willing to put in the effort to try, again, it just shows that they're willing to invest in themselves, which means that they're going to be a safer investment for us. So I wouldn't say that like not having social media precludes an artist from getting, from getting a record deal or from anything really, but it's one of the things that A&Rs or labels or distributors, it's definitely one of the factors that we look at, because if there is nothing there, it's a lot more work to make something there. So it doesn't mean that there isn't an interest in working with those artists. It just means that it's going to be a lot longer of a process until you see a return. So it's like back to the Shark Tank reference, right? Most of the time, the sharks are going to put in a bid if there's already a lot of interest, because they know that just their relationships will be able to take it much further, right? Whereas if it's a really cool product, but it hasn't been on the market yet, no one's bought it, they don't have any interest, it's hard to go from that. It's hard to go from 0 to 100. You can go from 60 to 100, right? So that first process is oftentimes not as attractive an investment. So, the people that usually end up getting the bids are the ones that have tried to get their product, at least in mom and pop stores, to kind of like stress test it a little bit before they get the shark's interest, right? So again, you don't need to build your Instagram to 5 million by yourself, but seeing that you're putting effort into developing it is definitely a very positive sign for someone that's looking to sign you.
Say, especially in a time like now where you have essentially nothing to do but create and promote yourself.
Right.
I think that, social media is one of those things where it provides a little bit of extra visibility to, contribute along with whatever the musical product is.
Yep. I think it's really similar to like artists that have taken the initiative to do these live streaming performances. A lot of people were saying, oh, this is only going to last so long, it's not the real equivalent. I agree, but seeing artists take the initiative to kind of try and find these new opportunities is a really positive. It's a green flag. It's something that if you see it, you're like, okay, this person, I at least know that they're focused on building themselves as much as we would be.
Awesome. We'll get right into our next question.
Hi, Elia, can you hear us? Hello? I don't think we can hear you. We might have to go to the next Q&A question.
Yeah, I'm moving to the next one.
Great.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thanks for being on the panel. So my question is really, when is like the best time to reach out to A&Rs? Because I've heard that sometimes when artists, they think they're ready and their team reaches out to an A&R, it might be too early and they're not fully fledged yet, I guess, for A&R, moving on to the next step. So how do you guys decide when is the right time? And then also, what's the best way to reach out to A&R? How was it before the pandemic and even during the pandemic? Because I think, Zoe, you mentioned you do go through your DMs and I'm sure you get a lot. So like, how do you filter through everything? I currently manage an artist who has worked with a major as a producer, but now he's going into his own way as an artist, and we're finding it hard to kind of like navigate reaching out to A&R because we don't necessarily have the numbers. And I know, Ethan, you mentioned the fine line between gut and data. So just really like, how do we navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of what to say, I think it's a similar advice to what we give to artists about what to put in their like Spotify for Artists pitch, right? You don't want to just like share some music, and you don't want to like try and tell your life story. I think it's about like, why should someone be excited about this email, right? Is there a story that you're trying to tell? Is there a real project here? Like, think of something beyond just like the transactional, right? Here's my music, check it out. Let me know if you think I'm cool or whatever. Like, there's so many emails, there's so many artists, there's so many people that want to be, that want to be on these labels or want to talk to these A&Rs. And, it's kind of cliche, but like, give them a story, give them something interesting that makes them feel like you're something that would be worthwhile investing in beyond just a track or beyond just music. So I think that's definitely an important part. And then in terms of when to reach out, I would say there isn't really a right time or a wrong time. But what I would do is make sure that when you're reaching out, you have something like a body of work or a song, you have something that you're confident in being able to present it. Because if you're reaching out like preemptively, in a lot of ways, like let's say they do respond, a lot of times then you've kind of wasted a connection. You know, like you want to make sure that if you are going to get a response, you have what you want to capitalize on right away. So I would say make sure you're ready in the sense that you have a product that you believe in and that you feel like is ready to kind of hear the world, for the world to hear it. Otherwise, there's no reason to be reaching out.
Also, think you have a conduit in your producer in terms of how to start reaching out. I would use the producer as a bridge. And within the same conversation, I would bring up the artist thing in passing, you know. I think if you have that tool, you know, use it as a conduit. You know, again, I think just having creative conversation, you don't know, you know, you don't really know what can happen. But a lot of times when I get like unsolicited emails and stuff, it's not that I don't want to answer everyone or listen to everything. It's that the conversation, it's not like, it doesn't feel like a conversation or an introduction to this person and what they're doing, what they're working on. It just feels like listen to my artist and sign them. And I just don't, that as an A&R person, like that is not how we sign stuff. I think it's like like, it's just not how we internalize and process wanting to sign things. We always want to come up with a diamond in the rough. Like you know, those stories about like, you know, answering an email and finding, you know, the next superstar. We would love that to happen. I think there's just like the way that you approach it can be a way that feels more human to human level versus just like, you know, a laundry list of stats and everything like that. Because we also like to be put on, and I think we like to be put on in a way that feels more personable, if that makes sense, you know.
I think you can connect some dots here and say, you know, if I'm interested in the email, if something catches my eye, then I'm going to go check the social media, and not necessarily the numbers, but at least is it updated? Am I seeing the thing that you just referenced, or talk about things that are going on? Like I'm going to do a little digging. So I think that goes to what Ethan said about being prepared, is like, follow the path that I'm going to follow and make sure that you keep me going down, you know, down the hole of figuring out what this artist is about and keep me excited by them.
Yeah, assume we're going to do due diligence. So if you send us a bunch of stuff and it's not, you know, if you have a new project that you're working on that you're really excited and you tell a whole story about it, and then we go and look at your social media and it's not listed anywhere, that's a lack of preparedness. You know, it's just make sure that what you're bringing to us is the full picture, so that when we go and check it out, assume that if we do stop and read your email, we're going to go and check things out. Like Ryan said, make sure it's all there. Make sure everything is like linked together. Make sure there's a consistent story that you're telling, because if you do happen to get our attention and we look, and when we look, it doesn't, you know, what we see doesn't connect with what you said, that's, again, it's a missed opportunity.
And I want to add to that, not only is it a missed opportunity, but you messed up the opportunity for somebody else. Because you know, for a lot of my A&R content, I get a lot of my questions and stuff from my DMs. You know, that's how I know what people really want to know, or what they're asking about, or how can I help. You know, it's usually the same. So often, like, you know, every day I go on my DM and I check on the other side of people I don't follow and I don't know. And literally people think my DMs is like, hey, if you, no, all my DMs are, can you listen to my song? I'm a producer. I'm an artist. I'm a this. Like every single, it doesn't matter what I post. Every single DM is a music question. So, you know, I click on everybody's stuff, and somebody will send me a long thing. I've been this artist. I'm from the same city as you. I'm grinding. Da, 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 and they tell me, like, I'll read quickly this whole story. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I feel like this person could be, because I'm optimistic. I feel like I might find the next biggest thing on Instagram. I'm on there. So I go to their page, and like, they won't have anything that's playing music, or they won't have any links to any videos, or they'll have something and it's like the sound is off, or, you know, there's like nothing for me to like directly engage with them. And it's like, you spent all this time doing a mini pitch. You got me to come to your page, and I came to your page and it was dry. It didn't have anything on there for me to look at. Now I got to click again and look at, I guess, too much searching. And there's been plenty of times where like I've looked at someone said something and it kind of caught my eye and I clicked on their page and, like I always leave comments and like pictures and like encourage, messages. So the point is just be ready, just in case you do get somebody's attention or you do. I'm out all the time and, I take pride in people stopping me and be like, hey, you're Zoe, can you listen to my song? I'm like, the fact that you know who I am and the fact that you stopped me and took the chance, I'm going to listen to your song. But if your song is bad and I don't like it and it sucks, it's going to make me less inclined for the next time I come across someone's page or come across them in person, like for me to stop what I'm doing and check it out. Because it's discouraging, like sometimes people be like, what's your email? What's your email? What's your email? We want to send beats. We want to send beats. I'll make up an email. I'll drop it. And it'll be 100 emails. They're just terrible. And it's like, man, like you're killing my ear. Now it just throws the whole thing off. Now I don't want to do it anymore. I got to just, try to catch direct content or, be referred by someone or something like that.
I mean, I think that's a great point. To follow up on it, kind of when we're approaching it, like, I tell this to all my artists, you kind of want to have a red line between everything. Like your music needs to match your image, needs to match your voice on social media. And like, even if somebody is not totally sold on the song, for instance, but they do get led to your social media and they can see, that there's a brand and that people are relating to it, that you've got good engagement and, things can be developed. But if you're just reaching out preliminary and you just have one record, you're kind of limiting your options as to what somebody's going to be interested in. If you're super stoked on a package of music, but that also matches your image and the way you're communicating with fans and the way that you're approaching the A&R or, anybody that you're trying to get ears on your music, I think that as long as everything's consistent across the board, that it does drive a lot more attention than just like a one-off, basically.
Yeah, and no one's addressed this one, and it's really basic, but definitely if you're going to submit stuff to an A&R, make sure that the A&R you're sending music to is involved in the type of music that you're sending them. Because I can't tell you how many times people send me music that has nothing to do with what I work with, right? And it's clear based on title, based on where I work, that that's not relevant. So it's kind of like, again, you have limited opportunities to kind of contact these people. And if you kind of use those opportunities to send unfinished music, you're potentially missing out. If you use these opportunities and you reach to people, let's say you're a dance music artist and you're sending all your music to Zoe, who's clearly working in the urban or in the hip hop R&B space, it's very important that you at least do some research and make sure that who you're submitting music to, the label that you're talking to, like make sure that there's actually an alignment there first.
Just look us up on Instagram and kind of sift through.
Yeah, what are the other artists that this person has worked with before?
Yeah, and I think a lot of us are able to do multiple genres. So I think overall my thing is just make sure you feel very confident in it and you feel like it's ready. I think it's just, again, it's the educational aspect, like knowing what's ready and what's not. If you're hot and you're hot in your city, like you should be telling us, I'm hot in my city. That's why you should be listening to my music. A lot of times that's not the conversation. It's just like, can you sign me and can you listen to my stuff? And it's like, man, I want to really make, what we do is made up of like an open door policy, but I think there's so much to cut through, guys. I wish all of you had real access to how many artists are out there right now, so you could see and understand like how selective we do have to be. This, it isn't like the 1970s where there was a lot of artists, but like there wasn't that many, and like everyone wasn't able to do it themselves. So we just have to be more selective because it's a business. It's a personal, A&R is a personal thing. You put yourself on the line to sign these artists. Management, the same shit. It's very personal. So, I think now more than ever though, what I like to see is someone who is self-efficient and has a vision and can make it happen, and with the label, the partnership is just like really even understanding how to activate us. That's another thing. So, sorry.
Yeah, I think a good kind of like a good little bit of advice on like getting someone to pay attention to your email is try and make us feel like if we don't engage with you, we're missing out on something without saying that.
Thank you all so much for your questions, and thank you to our wonderful panelists for coming on. I really enjoyed it. If you have not been to a previous panel, you can follow our social media at Color of Music Collective to find out the details about our next panel. But with that, thank you all so much for coming, and thank you to our panelists, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you for having us. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Safe.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.